I've been blessed this afternoon. How about you? The highest compliment you can pay anybody is to tell their story in front of them to their satisfaction and pleasure. Let me repeat that. The highest compliment you can pay anybody is to tell their story in front of them to their satisfaction. In other words, yeah, you got that right, and pleasure. And we have been privileged to have two people compliment each other with the highest compliments they can pay, because Bill and James know each other's story so well that they can tell each other's story in front of one another, and they both take satisfaction from it and give us pleasure from it. And I just thank you for that. I mean, that was just an incredible time together. We're just really blessed. I did want to hear more about the jacuzzi Jesus, though. I did. There was a lot more there that we weren't getting, but I do want also just to, in your prayer, James, led us in a certain direction, and I just want to pause for a moment before I start. I'd never heard that covenant friends before. I love that, you know. And Jesus had a covenant friend. I mean, 61% of clergy in the U.S. say they have no best friend. 61%. What, are they better than Jesus? Because even Jesus had, and I'm going to use that from now on, that covenant friend language. Even Jesus had a covenant friend, and his name was, well, who'd he cry over? Lazarus. See, his very best friend. Where's his favorite place to hang out? Bethany. And Bethany is, he really had a network of best friends, covenant friends. Lazarus and Mary and Martha. And that friendship with Lazarus, I mean, by the way, who was not one of the 12. That's that. We could spend the whole afternoon just on that one right there. Sometimes you need a place to get away so that Jesus can just drop down in that chair and go, "You would not believe what Peter did this week?" And if I have to deal with James and John anymore fighting over who's, and deal with their mother. All right. So just a really important word that to all of you here that you do, and that is so important. Jesus had one. We think we're better than Jesus? No, we all need what I've heard today for the first time, a covenant friend. Jesus did have a favorite saying, and it went like this: red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. See, I am quoting Jesus here. And then he went on to say, you know how to read the signs of the sky. I want you to know how to read the signs of the times. Now, the Greek word that Jesus uses there for sign, S-E-M-E-I-O-N or S-E-M-E-I-A, whether it's singular or plural, is the word that we get, from which we get the word semiotics. Can you all say that? Semiotics. And semiotics is actually just means nothing more than the ability to do what Jesus told us he wanted us to do, which was to read what? Signs. Now, there was a whole tribe of Israel that this was their mission. Each one of the tribes of Israel had a different mission, had a different animal that was to symbolize them. They had very different characteristics. And there are 12 many right ways of being a Jew. And there are many right ways of being a follower of Jesus. They had these tribes. And in one in particular, when there was this transition between Saul and David, all the ones that were supporting David came to him, and this one tribe in particular, you can read directly in 1 Chronicles 12, verse 32, this tribe called the tribe of, anybody know? Issachar. Said to David, we're supporting you here, in this transition of leadership. We're on your side. We've got your back. But this is our gift to you, King David. We are the tribe of Issachar. We are the tribe that knows their times and knows what to do. That knows their what? Times. Now, this language, amazingly to me, has been picked up by the world more than the church. And I am so fed up, I've so had it, that the world steals our best lines because we don't know we have them. I mean, the cloud. We had the cloud before Microsoft. Microsoft owes us royalty payments. The cloud, where the memory is stored, where our ancestors, where we connect with our ancestors, that's our metaphor, no fear. Hundreds and hundreds of times. One person said it was 365 times, but I couldn't find that. But one for every day. But 360 at least times in the Bible, it says, be not afraid. Fear not. We can't translate in the language of the culture to say no fear, so somebody else makes billions of dollars off of our language. Missional. I mean, that's our language. Then the corporate world, we gave it up. The corporate world took it on, and then suddenly we're now trying to get it back from the corporate world as they started these mission statements. Oh, now the church has got to do over and over again. And here's another one. Dean at Harvard Business School, his name is Nitin Noria, depending on how you pronounce it. He got a very large grant, and he got all of his business students, MBAs, at Harvard, not all of them, but a lot of them, to work on this project together, and they identified the 1,000 biggest success stories in the world of business in the 20th century. They itemized those corporations, those success stories, and then out of that 1,000, they picked the 100, what they said were the most defining and successful business leaders of the 20th century. Then out of that 100, they said, okay, now we're going to put it through the computer. They developed some algorithms to figure out what was there that continued them, that connected them, that made them so successful. Were there any things that they shared in common, any characteristics, any qualities? And when they put it through the computer, the biggest results, they had two big results. Number one, there was nothing in particular that was all the same. Not even vision wasn't one. They all were different. Except, hence the title of the book that summarized all this research, they all shared one thing in common. And that was that they all, can you guess? The title of the book is In Their Times. They all had the ability to read their times, to know their times, and to know what to do. Well, once again, now the corporate world is now all abuzz about what they call contextual intelligence. And the definition of contextual intelligence is the ability to what? Read your context, to read your times, but not just to be able to read it. You got to also know what to do. IQ. When I was born, it was all about IQ, intelligence quotient. That's going to shape your life story. Now, last 30 years, we've realized that, no, there's something more important than your IQ, and it's your EQ, your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence. But right now, they're realizing, well, there's something even more important than your IQ and your EQ, and they call it the CQ, your contextual quotient, the ability, this semiotic skill, this gift of the tribe of Issachar, to be able to know your times and to know what to do. Now, this is huge. And it's time that we started stealing this stuff back from the culture because it's our stuff. It's time we understood that Jesus was the master. I mean, the very word incarnation, incarnate, in the flesh, in the context, in real, I mean, carne, carnival, chili con carne. What else? Come on, give me some more. Carnivorous. I mean, it means in the context, in the real flesh, in real life. And Jesus came to a particular point at a particular place, spoke a particular language. It's all about, what's the word? Context. And so I'm giving you a couple of examples today, challenging you to give up this kind of general thinking that we've been used to. The modern world, the last 500 years, the world that Gutenberg built in the printing press, book culture, taught us to think middle. Via media, it formed bell curves, big, massive middles. We had mass communications and mass technology and mass media and giant middle class and middle management and mainline religion and mainframe computers. Everything just massified to these giant middles. And that world's gone. Anybody want to talk to me about middle class? How about middle management? How about mainframe computers? How about mainline religion? See, we live in a world that's no longer a bell curve world, it's a well curve world. Digital culture demassifies. There's this mitosis of the middle, and the ends are getting huge, and the middles are all dropping out. Now, in that kind of a world, the most dangerous place to position yourself is in the middle. In a bell curve world, the best place to position yourself for the greatest influence is where? Yeah. In a well curve world, but we're still thinking middle. Do you want to talk about middle in politics? I said a long time ago, the future belongs to the Pentecostals and the Eastern Orthodox. The churches are getting bigger and churches are getting smaller. The world's getting more global and the world's getting more local. But we still love the general. We still want to think general. And think of all the companies that were named generals. We claim general. We had General Motors that almost went under thinking there was still a General Motor. We had General Mills and General Electric and General Dynamics and General Foods. You get it. But that general world is gone. We've got to start thinking context. Not in generalities, but context. Now, let me give you a couple of examples real quick, and then we're going to end with a little Bible study. So if you get ready, get John 20 out in your Bibles so that we can get right there. So here I want to give you an example of, how many of you ever been to the Sistine Chapel? Anybody here been to the Sistine? Oh, look at this. Okay, great. Okay. Now, I've taken my daughter there. My daughter's 23. She'll be 24 on the 24th of this month. What do they call that, a golden birthday or something? Okay, yeah. I've taken her to the Sistine Chapel twice. It was so ironic every time I took her because if you've been there, you know that before you get in, and Francisca and I were talking about this beforehand, if you get into the Sistine Chapel, if you're a woman, you got to get covered up. So before you get in, they sell you shawls and they sell you, scarves because you can't show any skin to go into the Sistine Chapel where all you see once you get in there are nudes. And everybody's unclothed, but you got to clothe up to see the uncoverings. Anyway. But if you notice, right in the middle is this most famous of all the panels. This is the greatest pieces of art in the history of Western civilization. And right in the middle is the creation of Adam panel. And let's get a little close-up of that panel right there. Now, when you look at that panel, what you see is the divine creating Adam and reaching out, and there is Adam, who's really excited about this. Have you ever looked at Adam? I mean, he is just kind of, really? I mean, he can't even be bothered to reach all the way. He's got to prop up his arm on his knee. I mean, this is about as limp a wrist as you can get. Yeah, he is really excited. Now, let me just pause here for a minute. I'm a boomer. Anybody? I mean, how many boomers do we have here? Okay, I'm still trying to figure out one thing we got right for the church. I mean, there has to be something. But everything that my generation kind of focused on and tried to lead the church into, now we're realizing, oops. And here's one of the biggest. And you all, as soon as I say this, you're going to know who gave us this. So I'm not going to mention his name because I don't need to. But we were taught that basically the fundamental definition of who we are is we are all seekers. Okay? Now, let me just front this with the worst mistake you can make is a category mistake. In philosophical circles, a category mistake is a catastrophic mistake. Because if you're functioning off a wrong category, everything is wrong. But we were taught that, no, we're the seekers. So we had to do seeker, what it's called? Sensitive church and seeker-sensitive worship because we're the seekers. Well, if we're the seekers, that means God's the what? The hider. Because we're out there trying to find God because we're seeking and it's really hard to find God, so we got to seek and work harder and you just got to do these things and you can do them better and you're going to... What story are we in? This is the Genesis story, right? Are you kidding me? And this is, Michelangelo got it right. Who's doing the seeking? See, the story of the Bible, here's the first, the four square is exactly right. You got 4 original sins. And God's favorite thing to do is to walk the garden. Anybody remember this? God walks the garden with Adam and Eve, the first Adam, the first Eve. God's favorite thing. And one day, when God wants to walk the garden, God goes, Adam and Eve, where are you? And we say, we're seeking you, Lord. The first original sin, the first lie, the first untruth, the first brokenness is what? We say and that's the very definition of who we are. We are, this is the sin of humanity. We are the hiders. God's the seeker. God's the hound of heaven. God's hunting us. God's seeking us. Look at God. All the motion is here on God's side. Even the wind. God's in motion, in movement as the wind is, as he's seeking us and hunting us. This is the story from Genesis to the maps. It's not we're seeking God. It's God seeking us. Calling us out of our hiding places. Come out, come out, come out. This is the very definition of the Greek word for truth is aletheia. A means a negative. It means without. Lethea means without hiding. So to live a life of truth, it means to come out of. Bingo. That's what it means to come into the way and come into the light of God's presence and power as we live a life of the way, the truth, and the life. The first definition is why You're hiding. We're hiding from God. Why are you hiding from me? Now, God knows all these answers, but the Bible communicates truth, not in, these are my 4 points that you're going to get about the creation. You get a story. Why are you hiding from me? And we say what? We're naked. And we're afraid. See, and this is the second original sin, the second brokenness, the second lie. We're hiding from who we are. We're hiding from ourselves. We're hiding from who God made us. You get a bunch of 5-year-olds in a room. How many of you ask them, how many of you sing? Every hand goes up. You get that same group of 12 in a room, same room, ask the same question. How many of you sing? One hand goes up. What happens between 5 and 12 that our kids lose their song? Because we're hiding. Oh, well, she sings better than me, so I'm not going to sing at all. We're hiding from who God made us because we're all about conforming and copying and cloning and franchising. Oh, and then the third. Why? Because if we know we're naked, we ate of that. Why did you eat of that tree that I told you not to eat of? And Adam goes, what? Notice it's always God's fault. The woman you gave me, Hey, I didn't ask for her, This was your idea, You could have given me another platypus, another version of the, So this is our third broken relationship, our third lie, our third untruth, our third woundedness, a broken relationship with each other. So we're hiding from God. We're hiding from ourselves. We're hiding from each other. And we forget about the fourth one. As God says, okay, it's called truth or consequences, and you chose untruth. So here are the consequences, out of the garden. So we have a broken relationship with creation itself. The 4 hidings, the 4 broken relationships, the 4 lies. And what's the rest of the story from Genesis to the maps? It's the story of God's attempt to bring us back where? Into that garden relationship once again, where we can sing and he walks with me and he talks with me. But it wasn't an easy journey because we are great hiders. God tries everything. God tries a flood. In Asian culture, the flood's called God's tears. Of course, one tear would have done it. This is God. But then, okay, let's try a covenant, and let's try another kind of covenant. Okay, well, let's try a tabernacle. Well, that's not fancy enough for you. Let's try a temple. Well, you really want a king? Okay, I'll even try a king. I just went through a lot of the Bible. But with this culture, you got to do that. If you can't tell the whole story in 10 minutes, because evangelism is telling God's story in front of God to God's satisfaction and pleasure. In this culture, they got to get it in 10 minutes or less. And so God says, okay, hide from me all you want. But I am going to keep hunting you down. And so we come to a pivotal moment where God decides to step in. And so we have God, the very ultimate, omniscient, infinite. God steps in and becomes what? One of us. Incarnate, becomes Emmanuel, means God. What's God's middle name? With. And this withness, this relationship of withness, is the essence of the incarnation, is the heart of what it means to be in context, to be with your context. No, this is not a story of our seeking and God hiding. This is a hide and seek story, but we're the hiders. God's a seeker. We should have been doing hider-sensitive worship. Not seeker-sensitive worship. How to get people to come out of their hiding places? Because we all have them. And to tell them and to tell this world, there is only one place that you can hide. There's only one hiding place. And that is when you hide in the rock of ages. In the cleft of that rock. That's your only safe place. It's your only hiding place. Now, if you see this panel again, I want you to notice what we've done, and we've taken, just as we've done with the whole story of the Bible, from Genesis to the maps, what I just told you very quickly. We turned that story, chopped it up, sliced and diced it up into these little verses. You all know the Bible is written in verses, right? We did that. Like John Calvin did that. But the Bible is written in stories and letters and poems and songs, and we've all memorized Bible verses. Have anybody memorized a Bible letter? How about a little Bible song? Now, probably some of you have maybe Psalm 23, maybe. But what we've done is we've done the same thing that we've done to this picture. We've versified the story as we've versified this picture. And so in homes, here's what you see. You see the two fingers right there. We've taken that one thing out, just looped it out, and then that we talked about how that little distance there between Adam and God is the infinite chasm between the infinite and the finite, and it can never be bridged. But wait a minute, it was bridged. And it was bridged in Michelangelo's panel. Can you show me the whole panel again? You see, we're just so focused on that one point, you know. Jesus made points, right? He came bringing us points. This is a Jesus sermon. Here are my 7 points about highly effective discipleship, right? We've done the pointy stuff. But if you look at the whole story, wait a minute, the half of the whole panel, more than half, is the rest of the story. And you see that red canvas. Michelangelo, now he doesn't even, this is like 500 years ago. They haven't done any cognitive science, but artists have the imagination. And even then, he wanted to convey the mind of God. So do you notice that's a right brain? That's exactly the outline of a right brain. The right brain is where you imagine and where you dream, and in God's dream and imagination for the rest of the story, as God's hunting us and seeking us and wants to bridge that chasm, the rest of the story is there, and in that dream of God, you actually see the strangest Madonna scene you will ever see, as God's left finger and his left hand actually touches an infinite. But you notice that finger that God's touching, that little child, is twisted and tortured. And even like it's got multiple brokenness. Because it wasn't easy being with us. And of course, Mary, you always know it's Mary when she's a ginger. And here you have the rest of the story. The first Adam and the second Adam, who is the last Adam. Now, what we just did is semiotics. What we did is look at a context, but we looked at it whole. To see the whole context, you got to step back a bit, and you got to go slow. You can't go too fast. So now I want you to go John 20 right now, and we're going to do a little semiotics with this story. Paul said, without which we have no reason to be. This is the resurrection story. So let's put it up here on screen. And when you're reading it, when you're reading the Bible, not for the words, but for the story. In other words, we're not exegeting the words. We're exegeting the story itself. The context. And all the metaphors that come out of it. So early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, stop there. Okay, we got to, right now, part of the story is, and this is key, early and dark. Early and dark. So what you do then is when you see this, you go, okay, is early and dark important to the story? The story. The greatest story, what? Never told, right? Because we don't know it as a story. We just know it as these points and these verses. And no. But early and dark, well, we already talked about when's God's favorite time to walk the garden is early and dark. Oh, by the way, what is Jesus' favorite time of day? It's early and dark. Oh, and by the way, what does Jesus do when it's early and dark, his favorite time of day? Maybe that's what prayer is, just walking the garden with God. Walking the garden of your life with God. As you're having a conversation with God, and God's asking you, how does your garden grow? This garden of a life that I gave you. By the way, what is the world's oldest profession? It's not what you think it is. It's gardening. God put Adam and Eve in the garden and told them what? What's the prime directive? Tend it and till it. Care for it and cultivate it. So, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb, saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. Doesn't say rolled away. If you know anything about stones in the first century, you got all those sermons I know about the rolling stones. You gotta listen and read the story carefully. Get the details right. You derive your theology from the story. You don't impose your theology on the story. This is the inspired, authoritative, infallible story of God. Did you hear that? It's not just the words that are inspired. It's You go out in this culture, the context we're in, and you start talking about the inspired word, they will shut down. But you start talking about there's only one story that you can trust with your life. There's only one story that you can trust to be true in every way, and that's the story of Jesus. It's not the story of celebrities. Because every commercial tells you to trust your life to my story. Every celebrity, trust your life to my story. Build your life on my story. Every brand, build your life on the Nike story. No. There's only one story you can trust your life to. So she thought the stone had been removed from the entrance, so she came running to Simon and Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved. He said, they'd taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they had put him. So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running. Okay, now we got an issue here. Everybody in the story is, Now, we don't know what to make of that, but we know you cannot understand the resurrection unless you understand the importance of why everybody in the story is, Now, we don't have to know immediately. You just suspend it. I got some things suspended, sisters and brothers. They've been suspended there for decades. And I still don't know what they mean. But I know that I will never understand this story until I understand what that means. But, okay, we're not going to be able to understand and unpack the power of the story until we understand that. What does it mean that everybody's running? She came running. Simon Peter, there come running. They running, but the other disciple outran Peter. They even had a race, a foot race. And they reached the tomb first. He bent over, looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. And Simon Peter came along behind him, went straight into the tomb. In other words, John won the race. Peter came in, but Peter lost, but he blustering, blundering Peter, he's the one that goes in. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first in that foot race also went inside. He saw and believed, but he still didn't understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. So he's understanding, but he's clueless. That's why you know the Bible is, you can trust it, because it tells nobody who's trying to foist the story is going to say, but he was clueless. But I still didn't get it. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Keep going. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head, the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? They've taken away my Lord." She said, "I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for?" Thinking he was Whoa. How do you know Jesus' mission is complete and we now are back in that garden where we can walk with him and we can talk with him and we can hear him tell us that that we are his own? How do you know we can do that? Hey, because the second Adam had done what the first Adam couldn't. Brought us back into the garden. His mission is fulfilled. And Jesus said to her, "Mary," and she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Okay, let's go back. A couple panels. So everybody's running. They run. Mary runs there. Peter runs there. John runs there. They have a foot race. John wins, but halts, balks. Peter loses the race, but enters. Then they run back. Peter and John look in, and they see what? Stacks of linen. Okay, now, have you ever noticed? This is the greatest story in all of our stories. This is the story of the resurrection, without which we are nothing. So, this story is the hinge story of our history. It's the pinnacle story of our faith. And at least 3 to 4 verses of the pinnacle story of our faith go into great detail about dirty laundry. Did you ever wonder about that? This is the greatest story ever told, the resurrection of Jesus. In other words, if this is the inspired, authoritative, infallible story of God, it's there for it's not just put there incidentally. In God's providence and purpose, God puts us there because God wants us to get something. What have we not gotten? How could we have missed this? The greatest story of our faith, and you got great detail about stacks of dirty linen. Not only 2 stacks, but it's very specific. The stack at the head is different from the stack at the feet. The stack at the feet is all scattered. But the stack at the head is what? The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. But the stack at the head was neatly folded. Okay. Now just stop here for a minute. Come on, you can breathe. You can laugh. Okay? You ever heard this thing about a Jewish mama? Okay? This is the resurrected Jesus. He's just done what nobody in history has ever done. He's risen from the dead. He gets off the slab. in his resurrected body. And the first thing he does is fold his clothes. Who else is folding them? But he doesn't, he just folds the ones at the head, not the ones at the feet, but it's a habit, And this is the good thing about who you are. We're going to have a new body, but we're still going to be us. You get that? I mean, this is huge. We're going to have a resurrected body is going to be a very new body. I hope it's not going to have to fight gravity anymore. Okay? You can't fight gravity and win. So we don't have to, but it's still going to be us. We're still going to be who we are. And so the first thing Jesus does is fold the laundry, but then just scatters at the feet. All right? So Peter and John look, see these 2 stacks of dirty linen, dirty laundry, and then they rush back. Mary, come on. Why is Mary called by the Catholic Church even the apostle to the apostles? Because who's the first one to preach the resurrection sermon? Who is it? It's not John. It's not Peter. It's Mary. And Mary's the one that has the resurrection encounter with 2 angels who tell her he is not here, and the other account, he is risen. He's not here. Don't look for him in here. Church, you're hearing this. Don't look for him in here. He's out there. Come on. You got to see this. See, you got to, if you're reading the Bible for this culture, the context we're in, a digital culture, TGIF culture, Twitter, Google, Instagram, Facebook, TGIF. You got to turn what you're reading into a motion picture in your mind. It's got to become cinematic. Can you see it? It's got to become a motion picture right there. Can you see this motion picture as it's taking place? So Peter and John rush in. They see these 2 sacks of dirty laundry. Mary doesn't run back. She stays there, and she looks in, and she sees 2 angels. Where what? Peter and John had just seen 2 stacks of dirty laundry. So what stacks of dirty laundry are you looking at that are really angels unawares? See, God has for every one of us angelic visitations that we're missing all the time. Encounters with angelic presences and divine annunciations that we're missing all the time because all we see is dirty laundry. And Mary opened herself to see what was really there. Peter and John could have seen. They could have been the first ones to preach the resurrection message. But what did Mary do differently that they didn't do? You see, she stopped running. She halted. She stopped running. Peter and John just keep running. She stopped running. And she didn't run from her dirty laundry. By the way, those broken places of your life is where those angels want to appear the most. What is in your dirty closets, your dirty laundry? Your dirty piles of dishes and hidden secrets? She didn't run from them. She stayed there, and then, do you notice what did she do at the opening? She cried. She entered into the pain and confusion of that moment. And through the prism of her tears, God gave her the glasses that she needed to see what was really there. And it wasn't stacks of dirty laundry. It was angelic visitations. to announce he is not here. He's risen. Out there. Oh, it gets better. I'm going to end with this. What's the slab look like? What was it? What was it made of? The burial slab. But what did they put people in? How did they bury people in Jesus' day? See? So you got to know what's the word? Context. Now, so what they did, first of all, nobody who's crucified is ever put in a tomb, because part of the crucifixion is they keep you on the cross long after you're dead. And the vultures come, and the vultures pick your flesh, and then days later, the vultures are done picking the flesh, but what's now left? The bones, and the bones fall to the ground, and what takes away the bones? The dogs. So that's part of the crucifixion. This is why you thank God for Nick by night and Joseph of Arimathea, who said, as Jesus prayed on the cross, "Rescue me from the dogs," and his prayer was answered. Because they arranged for his burial. This is huge. They arranged for his burial. Took great risk to do that. But they put you in a tomb, but they didn't keep, like we bury somebody, they're there for the rest of their, till the ends of the earth. No, they put you in a burial cave, if you will, on a slab until you got your flesh decayed to the point it was, what was left of you was bones. And then what did they do with those bones? They gathered up those bones, and the family took home an ossuary. So we have the cremation, you get an urn, they got an ossuary where the person's bones would be kept, and then a little box like this where the bones would be put in. So what kind of a slab is it? Well, you got to picture the slab. So you got to turn up motion picture in your mind. So it's about a 4 to 5 foot limestone. Because limestone decays flesh quick. So it's a 4 to 5 foot limestone slab, a rectangular box, and at either end of which are 2 angels. Now, are you picturing this? See, when people would have heard this story in Jesus' day, right now, they would have been, oh, whoa, you got to be kidding me. Do you see it yet? Okay, let me try it again. You got this 4 or 5 foot rectangular box, at the ends of which are 2. What have I just described? The Ark of the Covenant, the holiest place of them all. The Ark of the Covenant, in which is kept the most high and holiest artifacts of the Hebrew faith. Aaron's rod, the tablets of the 10 Commandments, and the manna. But that's not the holiest part of the Ark of the Covenant. The holiest part is what is called on top the mercy seat. And the mercy seat is what gets sprinkled with the blood by the high priest who enters there once a year and sprinkles that space, because that's where the divine presence is supposed to be manifested and presented. And at either end of that rectangular box are who are up until now telling everybody he's here. And now the temple curtain has been, and the stone has been, and the angels are now declaring. But wait a minute, women, you ought to be standing up here now and hooping. Because the first high priest is a... Oh, would Amy be so proud right now? Because they're announcing to her, he is not here. You don't look for him anymore at the mercy seat in the Holy of Holies. He's out there in the world. He's risen. It gets better, but I don't have time. But you see, you start... I've gone 14 minutes over, and I apologize. But I wanted you to just go through, we could do every story like this. Do you understand this? Every story of the Bible's like this. I'm reading it. Let me tell you, it's like I'm on crack. I can't stop. I stay up late at night because I just can't. Oh, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? How did I miss this? See, so we read the Bible in the context of our culture. We will have one of the greatest revivals that the world has ever seen. Would you all stand? I'm going to end with a song with you. And we're gonna sing this a cappella, but the only way it's going to work is for you all to sing in parts. Now, I've been assured that you like to do this. You all know what I'm talking about? Because you're four square and you know four parts. We have four-part harmony. We got sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses. So I'm going to lead this song, and I can't sing, so I'm going to start it, and you're going to save me, okay? You're going to step in there. And we're gonna create four-part harmony. This is a song that you all know. You don't need any words or anything. You all know it. The only thing I'm gonna do different is you're gonna watch me because I'm gonna slow it down so slow, it's gonna be painful. I mean, you're gonna hurt, okay? Because you're just gonna not want to go there. But I want you to inhabit every word. See, as we slow down these stories, I want us to slow down this song. And I want us to enter into it. I want to hear the harmony of God's people telling the story together. And then, if you know anything about, I don't own a boat. I live on an island, and my wife kids me. She's got the only husband that doesn't own a boat. And I tell her, that's the job of your next husband to get you a boat. This husband ain't going to get you a boat. But if you're on a sailboat and you max out in the wind, you know you're maxed out in the wind when there's a total oneness of wood and wind and sky and sea. The boat actually hydroplanes a bit. It levitates off the ground just a little bit, and you can tell the moment it's hydroplaning because you can hear the hum. And I want to see if we can hear the hum this morning as we max out our voices in the winds of God's Spirit. And we see if we can't find our souls as they've been this whole time, just lifted up. And as our ministries and our churches are lifted up by the power of the wind, it's not the trees that move the wind, it's the wind that moves the trees. And we trust the wind and see if we can hear, I call it the perfect sound, the holy hum of being maxed out, our souls unfurled in the Spirit of God, just singing this song to the glory of God. Are you ready? Here we go. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him and heaven and nature sing. Land, heaven, and nature sing. And heaven and nature. Come on. Sing. And all God's people said, Amen. Thank you.